Hello everyone, this is Vishwas and welcome back to our micro front-end series. This is 8th video of our series and today we will discuss on how exactly we will do the state management in the micro front-ends with the help of RxJS library. If you watch my last two videos, in the sixth video, we have seen how exactly we can do the state management in the micro front end by using props and callback. Then we discuss on React context. And in the third approach, we have discussed how exactly we can use the lightweight state management library that is Zustand. And as a part of last video, we have seen how exactly we can do the state management in the micro front end with the Redux or Redux toolkit. And as a part of today's video, let's understand the state management with the help of RxJS. Now, when we talk about the RxJS itself a big topic, but as a part of this video, we will only focus on few of the key concept and the concept that is required for today's implementation. If you need more understanding around the RxJS, you can visit the official website and you will get more idea around this. Also, those peoples are having the Angular background. They might be having the more idea about the RxJS library or the observable concept that we are discussing as a part of RxJS library today. Now, when we talk about the RxJS, it is the reactive extension for JavaScript. It is a library for composing the asynchronous and event-based programs by using observable sequences. It allows you to work with asynchronous data stream like events, HTTP request, user inputs in the functional and declarative way. Now, when we talk about the RxJS, there are a few key concepts, and the most important is observables. It is a data stream that can emit the multiple values. We can say it is array for values that is coming over the time. Now we have observer. When we talk about the observer, it is an object that listen to observables. So we have observable here and that emits the multiple values, right? And our observer is listen to them and it reacts on the values emitted by the observable, and it is also responsible to handle them. Now let's talk about the subject. Subject is a type of observable that allows values to be multicasted to many observers, and it acts as a both observable as well as observer. That means it can emit the values as well as it can react on those values and it can handle them. Now let's talk about the behavior subject. This is the type of subject that requires an initial value and will always emit the current value to new subscriber. Main thing, it remembers the last emitted value and it will send that value immediately when the new observer subscribe to it. Now, when we talk about the RxJS, there are some common use cases. We can handle all these use cases with JavaScript as well. But if you go with RxJS, that will help us to manage that in better way or easiest way. Those common use cases can be like handling the user input, like events. It could be a click event, key press, or any other event, right? Then we have making the HTTP request and handling the responses. Then we have managing the real-time data. That could be by using the WebSockets or the real-time notifications. And then we can implementing the complex workflows with multiple asynchronous operation. So RxJS allows the developer to manage these scenarios in more declarative and concise manner by reducing the complexity that comes with handling the asynchronous code and events. And as I mentioned, it is often used in framework like Angular for handling the data flow as well as side effects. Now let's talk little bit about the implementation of observable. As I mentioned, an observable is a data stream that can emit values over time. you can subscribe to an observable to get those values. That means it is the kind of array for storing the values over the time. To use the observable, we need to import it named export from RxJS library. Then we can create the instance of it. It takes the callback function, and here we have the next method to emit those values. So first we are emitting the hello, then we are emitting the world here. And then we have observer here for listening to those values. Here we have the implementation of next method, and it will basically accept the value that is emitted by the observable, and we are just doing the console.log here. First, it will emit the hello value into the array, then word value, and with the help of observer, we can print those values. And once our observable gets completed, it will log the message complete. Now, when we talk about the subject acts as a both observable as well as observer. And it's having the different type, right? We have subject and behavior subject. Implementation is simple. We are importing the subject or behavior subject from our RxJS library. We are creating the object of it here. Here we are subscribing to it. That means it is kind of work as an observer here, which will listen to the emitted values and acts on them. And here it is acts as a observable to emit those values. I think this is all theory part about the RxJS library. If you need more understanding on this, you can visit the official website and get more idea on this. But I think we are good with initial discussion, and now we'll move to the VS Code and continue working on our existing application that we use to implement the Redux. Now in VS Code, if you are following along with me, this is our folder for managing the state in the Microfrontends. And we have created a new folder here, that is RxJS. And I have just copy pasted the same code from our existing video or existing implementation where we implemented Redux in our Microfrontends. Now, if you go to RxJS folder, here we have one parent application that is container, and we have child application that is common components. And in container application, we are managing the store here, where we implemented the store by using the Redux.js toolkit, and we basically exported the couple of methods, right? So that we can provide our store, and then we can use the use store hook, which having the selector as well as dispatch method for dispatching the action, and select the required state from our store. And we are exposing this store to child application by using the module federation plugin. And here exactly we are exposing it, right? Yeah, and now if I go to my child application with the help of module federation plugin, we are taking the instance of our parent application. And if you go to card details component, right, we are basically using the youth store here. From that, we are using the setCart method, and we are passing some data from our child application back to the parent. Then if you go to parent application, in the store, right, we are basically taking that data in the setCart method here, and we are just adding the update cart logic. And then all these cart details are available in the cart variable. And finally, what we are doing in the header component, right? We are again using the use store hook, and from that we are reading the cart variable, and we are just displaying that data in the header component. Now, if you go to Chrome and look at here, this is our application, and this food list is rendered through the child component. And when I click on this add button from my child component, we are basically using the Redux to manage that data, and that data will be displayed in header component of my parent application. This is how we implemented the Redux or any other state management library till now. And today, instead of Redux, we will see how exactly we can do the state management with the help of RxJS library. For that, let me first install the RxJS library. And for that, we will do npm install RxJS. Let's wait until it's complete. Now RxJS library is installed and we will start with actual implementation. Let's go to our Rx folder, and if you go to container application, here we will create our observable. If you look at our src folder, we already having the store file, right? And when we are creating the observables, we can go with any of the util file. But as we already have the store file created and we are using its entry in the Webpack config files, right? So let's stick with the store.jsx file for now, and we will write our observable code here. As we are working in React, I keep the file name as a JSX, but we can also go with file name as a JS if you are going with any other framework. Now let me remove all this code because it is not needed now, and we will create our observable here. First, let me import something from RxJS, and we will import subject from it. When you talk about the subject, subject works as a observable as well as observer. That means it can emit the value as well as it can listen to those values and work on it, right? So we only need subject for today's implementation, and we'll see how exactly we can emit the event from your child application and how exactly we can listen that in our parent application. So we imported the subject here, and now create one object from it. We are working on cart application, so we'll give my object name as a cart, and we will create object here with subject. And we just need to export it now. Export default, and we have cart data. I think only those changes we will be required while creating the observables. And now we will export this subject in our child as well as parent application. For that, we know things are simple, right? If you go to my parent applications Webpack config file, here you already know we are exposing our store to child application. Here we are going with the store.jsx as a path of our store file. And here we have written our observables. Now, if you go to our child application that is present in the common components folder and look for Webpack config file, you see we are using the parent application instance here. And now if you go to our card details component, till now here we are using the use store from our store, right? Because there we use the custom hook to expose some of our Redux logic. But now in our case, we just need to use the cart data here. We don't require the store anymore, and we will just do the cart data here. And then instead of using this use store, we will remove this, and we will also remove the call of set cart. And here we will require our cart data. Now, as we learn in the previous video, when we are importing any of the component from different applications, right? Generally, we are importing it asynchronously, and for that, we are using lazy loading. But in this case, like our store file is very simple, and we don't require the lazy loading of component here. But it is good practice, always go with the lazy loading approach. When we are going with React, we can do the react.lazy, and then we can use the suspense. But if you are going with plain JavaScript, we cannot use the React lazy loading, and in that case, we can go with dynamic imports. At the end of this video, we will also see how exactly we can do the dynamic import for our JavaScript files. But for now, we are good. Now we are in our handle click method, where when we click on add button, this method gets called, and here we are getting new items as a parameter. And now somehow we need to send this new item to our parent application. And this is very easy when we are going with subject. We know that subject is used as a observable as well as observer. That means we can emit the value as well as we can listen on those values. And from child application, we need to emit these values. And for that, we need to use the next. Next, and here we can pass the necessary value to it. Yeah, and I think only those changes we will required in our child application. It will be a small next. Now, if you go to app.js here, right, we are also using our store provider from Redux, and that is not needed now. So let me remove that as well so that we can have the clean code. Yeah, let me save these changes, and our implementation in the child application done now. Now let's move to the parent application that is present in the container folder. And if you go to Webpack config, we are already using the instance of our parent application here. And same instance need to be shared by child as well as parent for managing our store or common files. Now we are using the cart logic in our header component. So let me go to the components and go to header file, right? And here, if you see, we are using use store till now. So instead of use store, now we will use cart data here. We don't need to use the cart from use store anymore. And for now, I will just assign the empty array to it so that we don't get any issue in our application. So let me save these changes. And now we need to add our logic here to get the new item from our child application. Now here we need to subscribe to our cart data, right? Because we want to read some values from it. And this will be a asynchronous operation, right? And for that, I will use effect, and we will add our logic in it. The use effect will be used to handle the asynchronous operation or handle the side effects in React. And we need to call this use effect only once. For that, we can add the empty array as a dependency. And now here we will use the cart data, and we will subscribe on it. It will be a subscribe method. Yeah, this method takes the object, and now here we can have the implementation of our next method. It will be a method, and now we will just console.log the value that we are listening on. If you go to cart details component from child application, here we are basically emitting the new item. And now let's go to the header component, read that value here. And what we will do, we will just try to console log that value in my parent application. We will say in header with RxJS, and we'll try to print our new item here that is emitted from child application. Let me save these changes and run my parent application. For that, we will do the npm start. Let's wait until it start. We got some error in our parent application, and it's saying that element type is invalid. And basically, you likely forgot to export your component from the file. If you go to here, it will say error in your app component. Yeah, and I think this error is due to, in the app component, we are using our store provider. That is not required anymore because that was a Redux implementation. And let me also remove this wrapper. Let me save these changes, and I think our application should work now. Let me refresh it. Yeah, our application is working as expected. Let me inspect the element and go to the console. And when we click on food item, we are expecting that our child application should emit the data and our parent application should listen on them. So click here and we successfully getting the data from our child application into our parent application. And this is how easy working with RxJS is. Very simple, right? And we can use RxJS in any combination. That means we can have child application in any framework, parent in any framework, and RxJS is suitable for everyone. Great, simple, right? Now we are getting this console log dot toys, right? And this is the behavior of React. When we are working with React in development mode, it is basically adding the strict mode to make sure that the component render twice to handle any side effect. I think you should know about that. And if you go to our index.js file or bootstrap file, right, we will see we are using strict mode here. And due to that, our components gets loaded twice in the development mode only. This is just for your information. Now we successfully got the value for one item, the item that we clicked on, but we need to update our store properly. That means like if you are watching my previous video, we are following that logic. When I click on add button here, the one item should get added into my cart. That means on the top. And when I click on any other item, the cart length should get updated and you will see two items here. And if I click on any of the existing item, instead of adding the new entry, it should update the quantity of our existing item. And now let's work on that logic. And we will work on that logic in our parent application now. For that, let me close this unused file that is not needed, and we will focus on our header component now. In header component, instead of using this cart variable, now I will use state here to update my cart. It will be a cart, and then we will use set cart method. And we will use state here. Initially, our cart will be empty array. Now let me create one function to update my cart, and will give name of that function as a cart here. It will be a function, and here we will add our logic. And basically, when we call that function, we will call that function here when we are getting the new item. Instead of doing the console log here, I will use the update cart method, and it will take new item as a argument. Then that new item will be available here, and here we have our set cart logic now. Let me just copy paste that logic now, because you are now familiar with that logic, and that logic is very simple, right? Instead of small set cart, it will be a capital set cart. Now, if you look at here, we are using the set cart method from our use state, and we have the logic to maintain the previous state. In the cart, we are getting our previous state. Initially, it will be a empty. Then we are checking if the whatever new item that is present in the existing cart, if it is present, we are just updating the quantity with +1. And if we don't have that item present in the cart, we are basically just appending the new item with quantity 1 to our existing cart. This is very simple logic, and you are aware of that now. Let me save these changes. Now we are getting all our cart in the cart variable, and we are using that cart for below to show our cart items. And I think we are done with our implementation now. Only that logic will required in our parent application. And now if you go to our application and try to add any item, that item is now gets added into the cart. Let me see the details. And here we are seeing the two items. I think it is due to strict mode. Let me try to remove the strict mode, and then we will see. Let me remove the strict mode from my parent application. Let me also remove this. It is not needed. And let me save the changes and refresh again. Now, if I add any item into the cart, yeah, it is added only once now. Let me try to add one more time. We will see the quantity gets updated to 2. Let me add one more time. It is updated with 3. And now let me add few more times new item that is updated with its quantity. Yeah, and this is working as expected. And this is how simple using RxJS to manage the state in your micro frontends. Easy, simple, great, right? Now let's work on one last point. As I mentioned, like we can also use the dynamic import when we are going with plain JavaScript files. And let's understand that point as well. For that, let me rename my store file. Let me go to my parent application and we will rename the store file. Till now, we are using name with .jsx file, but now let's go with JS file, right? And here we can have any name. Instead of store, we can have the utils or common.js, anything is fine. Now we have renamed it. Let me go to my parent application Webpack config file and let's also update that name here. Now we have made changes in our parent Webpack config file. We need to restart our application. For that, let me do npm start. Let's wait until it's complete. Yeah, our application is loading again. Let's see. Yeah, it is still working as expected and we are getting the updated cart here. Now let me go to my child application again and here if you go to cart details component, till now we are using cart data as a import here, but instead of that we can go with dynamic import now. And when we are going with dynamic import, the logic again simple. If you need more understanding around the dynamic import, I have detailed video on that in my Webpack playlist. I will share the link in the top description, or you can also find the link in the description of this video. If you need more understanding around the dynamic import, you can go through that video, but things are very simple. To do the dynamic import in the JavaScript, we are just using the import method. And now here we will do our import of store file. It will be again simple. We will go with same syntax that we have on top. First, we will have the container application. That means that is coming from our Webpack config file, right? If you go here, this will be my container application. I will use that here. And then we have store file. This import method will return the promise. For that, we will use the then keyword. And then we have our promise implementation here. We will get our module here. It will be a module or we can go with any name. And from here, we will now read our cart data. Cart data we will get from module.default because this is our module and from that we are using the default export. Let me save these changes and now we will just use this cart data inside this import. Let me save these changes. We will do console.log here so that we will make sure that the new item we are getting in the dynamic imports now. In dynamic import, let me just add it here. Let's save these changes and now refresh our application. Let me inspect the element. And when I add any item now, yeah, it is added from the dynamic import. And if you go to top, that item gets added into the cart again. Let me add a second item and that is available here. Let me update the quantity of existing item and that is working as expected. And this is how simple we can add the dynamic import if you are going with vanilla JavaScript. This is simple. Same dynamic import implementation we can have at parent level. That means in header component. You can do it by your own now. I think that's all for today's video. We successfully implemented RxJS to manage the state in our micro frontend ecosystem. Finally, I will push the today's implementation code to GitHub. You can find the link in the description. You can go through the details, clone that repository, and try to implement RxJS in your application to more advanced level or with multiple workflows. Also, as a part of this series, we have discussed 5 different ways to manage the state in the micro frontends, and this is really great. You can try implementing any option in our micro frontend state management and choose the best suitable option for your project. Now we are good with state management, and as a part of next video, we will work on micro frontend deployments. That means currently, if you look at here, our micro frontend integration happens on the local environment only, right? And as a part of next video, we will see how exactly we can deploy all our child and parent application, how exactly we can do their integration in the Webpack config file, and how finally we can deploy our parent application to the production so that end user can access it publicly. I think that's all about the current video. Finally, if you are enjoying my videos, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It takes lots of effort to create these videos, and sharing them with your friends helps them to reach more people. Your support really means a lot to me. Thank you for watching and see you in next one. Till now, thank you. Bye.